was quite calm that morning, so it was nice. It was sunny. It wasn't overly hot. It was one of the cooler days. We looked up and Austin had gone out a bit far, so I said to Grace we'd get on another paddleboard and that she'd get on the back with me and we'd go out and get back in.
And I looked back and the shore's miles away. I was like, how's that possible? I've literally been on this for like 15 seconds.
It was really windy down there. Current just looked
fierce.
Yeah, it wasn't good. So I'm a critical care paramedic. I work on the RAC rescue helicopter.
I was left with that little short gap that if I don't make a decision now, we're all in trouble. As Austin is leaving me and I'm doubting my decisions.
I look back, I can still see like their faces, and then I can see the silhouette, and then I can just see a dot and then it's gone. Didn't see a big wave and then it knocked me off, and like I hit my head and I got trapped under the kayak.
How am I going to tell anyone that I've sent my kid off and he hasn't made it?
Got the initial information, you're like, that doesn't make sense. 13-year-old swimming 4Ks. You're processing this and you're like, nah. We found them.
When the light came on us, and it stayed on us, and it was the best thing in the world, but it also made us, all three of us, kind of look up, and as we did, a wave came. All of us got flipped. The wave took the kids away from me.
Then because the kids had become separated, myself and Myke were using night vision goggles, and I had a searchlight out the side of the aircraft.
And I was like, kill the engine, I can hear her scream. I'm trying to go, okay, well, Austin, did you get Austin? Has anyone got Austin?
Let's talk about that decision to send Austin back, because I mean that is a big decision.
Yeah.
It almost sounds too extraordinary to be true. A 13-year-old boy stranded at sea with his family swims through rough swells to get help. Earlier this year, Austin Appelbee, that 13-year-old boy, found himself adrift at sea in Geographe Bay and swam for 4 hours back to shore to desperately seek assistance for his family. Today we're joined by Austin, his mum Joanne, and critical care paramedic Josh Lyons. Thanks for joining us.
No worries.
It'd be good to set the scene a little. So on this day, what was the plan, Joanne? Where were you thinking you were going?
We were just going out for a paddle outside the hotel just for an hour or two before we'd load up the car, and we were going to head back to Perth quite early, so we were coming home a day earlier than what we had booked because we had various appointments. We were about to start a new secondment. I was for work and the kids were about to start a new school year, so it was just, we had been down there since the Tuesday. This was on Friday, and yeah, we were just having one last dip in the ocean and heading home.
So this was just the last fun activity at the end of
absolutely.
a nice holiday away.
Yeah.
Okay. And set the scene for us, what was the weather like?
It was quite calm that morning, so it was nice. It was sunny. It wasn't overly hot. It was one of the cooler days. But it was perfect, and the ocean looked beautiful. We got there with the kayak and the paddle boards and just sunscreening up, and it looked fantastic. So we weren't going to be long out there. It was going to be in the nice little shallow area. That changed pretty quickly.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was it. It was nice. It was a good day.
Okay. And these you'd hired these kayaks and the paddle boards?
So yeah, they come as part. The hotel has them, and then you sign them out, and you take them out for 2 hours at a time.
Okay.
So yeah, they've been signed out, allocated to the room, and yeah, we were a little bit late collecting them, and then the boys extended them for an hour, so we had them for that extra little bit of time, but they still should have been back, I suppose, about 1 or 2 o'clock.
All right. And Austin, had you spent much time on paddleboards, kayaks before?
We have a family of friends, and we usually go on holidays up in Dongra with them sometimes.
Okay.
And they have a paddleboard, but they would always tie a rope, and you would tie it to the shore.
Okay.
So when I found old photos of us, so there's Bo's friend Noah, and Bo and Grace were on the shore while me and Noah had to go on the paddleboards. There's me about to fall off the paddleboard, and then him trying to steer the paddleboard. But Bo and Grace is holding the rope. And then I was like, we really should have done that day. But, it felt normal. Obviously, it was very light paddleboard. So, I had enough experience to not completely drown myself.
You felt comfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And at what point, so just, you were on a paddleboard. Okay. Yeah. Were all the kids on their own paddleboards or?
No, so we had 2 paddleboards and 1 kid's kayak.
Okay.
So Austin took off on one of the paddleboards while the other 2 were still on shore.
Okay.
So Bo was setting up his fishing rod. Grace was putting on sunscreen and making sure the life jacket was on, and she was playing around sort of in the water. So we were still on shore, and then we looked up and Austin had gone out a bit far, so I said to Grace we'd get on another paddleboard and that she'd get on the back with me and we'd go out and get back in.
Okay.
And then Bo was still on the shore at that stage, just getting his kayak ready,
Right.
his fishing rod ready.
Okay. When did you have that sense that things were going a bit wrong?
Went out to get Austin back in and was giving him a hard time to come back into shore. And then one of the oars got lost from the paddleboard, so tied them together and tried to row it in with the other paddleboard, but wasn't getting far on a blow-up paddleboard.
Okay.
And that's when Bo came out and said, are we okay? He had made it out sort of a little bit. And it was still sort of okay, but we said, I think it was Austin shouted at him to come out and just give us a hand to try and get back in.
Okay.
And then it went, well, bad from there.
Okay. I like that already the family is working together as a unit. That you've seen that Austin's in help, needs some help. Bo's seen that the rest of you need some help. So you're already working together as a unit to try to solve this situation. I mean, why do you think it changed so quickly? Was it windy? Was it a current? Was it?
So back at the shore, it wasn't windy at all. It was when we got out there, the wind sort of picked up a bit.
Right.
And it was even without us noticing as such, because we were there, trying to get back into shore, and then you realise that you're another, a few hundred metres out, and it was like, hang on a minute, we weren't here a minute ago, so, we've got to really try harder to try and get back into the lighter blue water. And yeah, it just wasn't happening, but in the blink of an eye, like it was. But, and again, we had never really been out that far either. It just kind of swept us out quickly once we got off the very shallow water.
And Austin, you were the first one out there. Did you have a sense fairly early on that you were going to find it hard to get back to shore?
It was just kind of like don't look back moment. So I was just like going, and I was like, because we went double kayaking the day before, and it wouldn't take us out forward, it'd take us out to the side like normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, hold up, where's the boy I see all the time? And then I looked back and the shore's miles away. I was like, how's that possible? I've literally been on this for like 15 seconds.
Wow.
A lot of people actually told me that I should have just like jumped off and maybe like swum back in that point. Maybe not.
But you feel a bit, I mean, it's not your paddleboard. You feel a bit responsible for it, don't you?
Yeah, it just got a bit chaotic because I couldn't turn the actual paddleboard back to shore. So I had to turn around my whole body and just go backwards on the paddleboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like really hard to steer, and then Mum caught a fish. It was a pretty good fish too.
So this was all happening. You caught the fish on the same.
Well, the fishing rod was lying on the paddleboard because that's originally we were going out in the little shallow end, just let them, you can see the fish and let them sort of catch it.
Okay.
Bo really wanted to catch fish, so it was lying on the paddleboard, and while we were trying to get out to get him, and in between that, lifted it up and then it went down again, and then one fish just took bite, and it was like, oh well, there's fish there now.
Nice.
So we scrolled that up, and then that's when the oar went missing. It was like I just grabbed the rope from Austin's paddleboard and held it, going, right, well, I'll have to pull you back in.
Yeah.
And yeah, this fish was hanging off the back of the paddleboard. So
all right. The fish came with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't actually remember much of like what we were saying, but I remember one thing was that Mum looked at me and she was like, "Oh, Austin, because usually I don't, I like crumfish, you know what I mean?"
Okay. Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, okay, Austin, you're eating this fish tonight, and we are going to talk about our adventure." And then I was like, "Oh, okay." And then never got to eat that fish.
But it was your mum thinking of something to look forward to. You're ready to think about the end of the adventure.
Yeah. Obviously didn't go to plan. Mum swapped with Bo in the kayak, and it's either Bo was paddling as fast as he could in the thing, so obviously by then there was a lot of water in the kayak because when the rescue crew found the kayak, it was like 80 kilos.
Wow, really weighed down with water. Bo's paddling frantically trying to pull you guys back into shore.
Yeah, and he was doing it earlier. I could see him in the distance. He looked like a pro kayaker. Just doing like little circles. But when they flipped the kayak back over and they scratched the whole boat trying to do it, they realised the fin was scraped off.
Oh, wow.
Because of people just scraping it along the concrete.
Okay.
And just sunburning it. So it was just
work cut out for him. Joan, was there a moment when you realised that that you reached a turning point, that there was no easy getting back to shore?
Yeah, it did happen very quick. So it was all a bit of a gag and a laugh to begin with, because we weren't visually that far. It was when I realised that we kept getting dragged out a few hundred metres after trying to paddle back in.
Yeah.
And then I had Bo out with his little kayak, because it was full of water, hopped into the water, emptied it out as best we could, back in, and I got into it to try and row it and pull them, but I wasn't getting anywhere, kept filling with water again.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, it's not a big kayak, so maybe it's me. Not to me, I'm huge, but anyway. Yeah. It was, I was like, it's a kid's kayak.
Yeah.
I'll get Austin back into it. Austin would probably be a bit stronger, so I put him into it. And I kept filling with water on him as well. So we tried to empty it a couple of times and couldn't figure out what was going on. Kayak was just there to use. I don't know much about them.
Yeah.
And it just couldn't seem to get far. So then when I went, we're still getting dragged out. This could turn bad.
Yeah.
Go and get them, because Austin says, well, I ring 000. And I went, no, just go to the hotel. They'll know what to do.
Yeah.
Just go and tell them. So at this stage, I'm still going, it's going to be really embarrassing.
Yeah,
that I've been caught out here in this and can't get back in. But no fear at that minute going, is there not? And then as he was rolling away, I was like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. This isn't looking good at all.
So first thought is, this is really embarrassing.
Yeah.
I'm going to feel really shamed going back into the hotel and going, thanks for coming and getting us. But no fear at this point.
Not at that point. It was just more like, should we not, what would we do? And thinking, in that area, there's sometimes during the day, there's quite a lot of boats passing through. There was no boats.
Wow.
There was one that came later on for that sort of area. And I kept thinking, well, why is there no one out here? What's going on? And then when I realised the wind, I was saying, yeah, it was time to panic.
Okay. Now, Josh, it'd be good to bring you in here. You're a RAC Rescue Critical Care paramedic.
Yes.
Situations like this, how quickly, in your experience, do they escalate from that, well, this is a bit embarrassing, to, oh, we're actually in trouble here?
Oh, really quickly. Yeah. I was listening to Joanne's story, and I've not actually heard the story before from that perspective. Yeah, I can almost... I don't know if you've ever done fishing on a boat and you're on the perfect spot, and then every time, you have to turn around every 2 or 3 minutes to get back on the spot. Like, your drift happens really fast. So I can easily see how it went from, oh, we're a bit far out, and 5 minutes later, oh, now we're double that distance out, and now we're double that distance out, and then we're in trouble. Yeah, happens really quickly, and you don't plan for it, right? So it's happened without planning as well.
Could you just break down your role for us before we go on with the story, Josh? So what does a critical care paramedic do?
So I'm a critical care paramedic. I work on the RAC Rescue helicopter, right? So, but I'm actually employed by St John Ambulance, and I started in 2009 with St John, did my normal training, became a paramedic. And then when the Bunbury helicopter came online about 10 years ago, obviously there was recruitment and new positions available. So I applied and I was successful to get on there, and then I started through the training program. And then I've been working on the ERH helicopter for 10 years now. So what does a critical care paramedic do? So predominantly we go to the major trauma in the regional areas on the Jandakot and Bunbury helicopter. We have quite an advanced skill set. So we carry blood products, so we can do blood transfusions. We can do pre-hospital anaesthesia, so it means we can put you to sleep, put you on a ventilator. We can do quite invasive procedures if you need. We can put holes in your chest if your lungs collapsed. We can give you quite a lot of additional medication to what you would normally receive if you're on the if you got a paramedic in the city. So it's quite an intensive skill set. And then on top of that, we've obviously got the rescue elements, which is what you guys needed. You didn't need medical aid. You needed someone to come and find you. Our plan was to, and I say hoist because that's the term we use, but everyone would understand to be winch. Our plan was to winch down and get you guys out. So anyone that's in inaccessible terrain over ocean or land, we'll treat the patient, then we'll bring them up either in a stretcher or in a harness or whatever they need. Mm-hmm. So that's another really important part of what the helicopter does is the rescue, getting to patients that aren't accessible by any other means.
All right, so it's very varied and intense role.
Very, very varied, yeah. And it's highly intense. A lot of the traumas we go to, they're critically unwell. Hence the training and the skill set that we apply to these patients. But it's very rewarding as well. It's good.
Particularly when there's a happy ending, as there is in this case, I imagine.
Yeah. This was a case for myself and Adam, the other CCP, and Myke and the pilot and John, the crewman. We really wanted to meet Joanne because this was we were all invested in this rescue.
I can imagine. Well, let's get back to I suspect one of the more intense moments, which is realising that things have gone wrong. You're being swept out to sea. So how quickly? So you're all there. You've been trying to tow the paddle boats back in with the kayak. How quickly are you moving out to sea now? I mean, how quickly is the shore disappearing?
Oh, it's very quick. Yeah. So as Austin is leaving me and I'm doubting my decisions and wondering what I'm supposed to do, even by the time he simply rode off and kind of rode off, and he was 100 metres away. He was 300 metres away, and I was hoping that he was getting closer to shore, but in hindsight I think it was me that was getting dragged out to the sea. Right. So yeah, it was very, very, very quick. And you can see everything in your peripheral vision, so you can see a landmark and you're watching that landmark and it looks like it's here, but you know, you're trying to, because we then, what I did was I put Grace and Bo on one paddleboard to kind of even their weight, and me on the other one, and then I tied the two leg ropes together. And as I said to everybody, it was like a MacGyver moment. I didn't want it to be a raft because the waves were getting higher, so if it was a raft it would knock us off, but if it was just tied together we kind of had the buoyance to keep afloat. Yeah. And as I'd done all of that and in that water kind of making sure they were all good, I noticed how this landmark that I've been watching was now here, and it kept going back, and I'm like, we would count to 50 and paddle 50 times, have a rest, paddle 50 times, trying to get back to this mark. If I could get there I'd be closer, and then go from there, but I could never get back to the mark, you know. Okay. So.
It sounds like you're thinking very clearly. I mean, this is a moment of intense stress, and obviously you're aware that you're in danger now. But you had that clarity of mind to make the decisions you needed to make. Did it feel like that at the time?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
No, that was more of a survival mode, I think. It was more, if it looked like I was panicking, the kids were going to panic, and if they panic, we're in more trouble than I can get us out of. So it was trying to, you know, we were talking about Moana and Free Willy and How to Train Your Dragon and all of this. Just in between that, my head's spinning, trying to go, how am I getting back to shore?
Put your game face on.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly it. And I'm thinking, because of course I'm Irish, that, you know, the only thing that'll kill you in Ireland is your mother, or, you know, a bull in a field. Over here I've got snakes and spiders, and now I'm thinking of sharks and whatever else is going to catch us out there, and if he's going to make it, and has he made it already, and how soon is someone going to come and get us? And
Let's talk about that decision to send Austin back, because I mean that is a big decision.
Yeah.
I mean, how easy was it to make at the time? Did it just seem like the only option?
It went through my head of what to do. So, and Austin had offered to go back in, and at that stage I had still thought, no, we can probably do this ourselves.
Yeah.
It was more, I was left with that little short gap that if I don't make a decision now, we're all in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Bo wanted to go, and bless him, he would have done everything in his power to go, and he's got determination just like Austin. He probably would tire out quicker, and it was like, he's the oldest. If I leave and go myself, which people have asked me why I didn't, how can you leave 3 kids at sea? So it was like, I have no other option here to get us saved.
No.
That was just it.
It makes sense to me. It's one of those decisions that as a parent you just have those moments
Yeah,
of clarity. Like,
it's either lose us all. Yeah, it's lose us all.
I think if you hadn't made that decision, you wouldn't.
We wouldn't be here. No.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's a decision that asks a lot of you, Austin. I mean, how did you feel when your mum said, "You've got to get back to shore"?
Yeah, I remember. I don't think Grace had a lot of determination, but she just didn't seem it. She was obviously quite frightened at the time. And then Bo was offering to go too. But I was, I soon found out that was the only option.
You were the eldest. You the strongest, the most likely to make it. Did you feel a sense of responsibility as the eldest? Like, it's got to be me. I'm an eldest myself. This is why I'm asking.
So, until I think it was until the next day, I didn't realise what I've done. So, I thought I just swam back. So during the swim, I wasn't thinking of like, oh, I'm gonna be famous and I'm gonna, but yeah, it was just the determination, and then the thought of losing them, and like Mum said, she had some doubts, but I was gonna make the decision to swim back, swim back to see them, and I was like, oh no, wait, and then so I was like starting to swim back. And I still had my life jacket on. And, I decided, no, this isn't a good idea. And so because the kayak was still coming at me, so I hopped back on. And then I saw a ROC helicopter. And I was like, oh, come on. Surely you can see me. And then it went around the coast. And I thought it was, it's just going to check around there. It's going to come back. Where is it going?
So this is why you were still swimming back to shore?
Yeah.
You saw a helicopter and you were hoping it would spot you, but...
Yeah.
Okay. That must have been dispiriting. It must have kind of made you...
Yeah, and then there was
hope
boats, and I got about 25 metres away from the boat, and I know he had like loud music on. It was like funk music, like... Dun, dun, dun.
He was having a nice time.
So he was just a guy enjoying himself. And meanwhile, I'm literally 25 metres away screaming for help. And he's like, I think he looked around and he's like, am I hearing stuff? So, and then when I got closer, because like Mum was saying about landmarks, there was like a kind of like this long strip of bush. And I was like focusing on that half the time. And, yeah, it was. I eventually like saw birds, like the wedge tails. I was like, oh wait, hold up, I might be getting a little bit closer here.
It would be good to talk about that more in a bit more detail in a moment, Austin. But if we could just go back to that moment when you're setting off that decision. So your mum's asked you to head back. I mean, what are you feeling at that moment? Are you confident you can do it?
I wasn't confident at first because we lost 20 minutes ago, and then because I was already trying to get back by myself, And then
Because you'd been on the paddleboard trying to go back in and you couldn't.
yeah, so me and Mum had swapped on with the kayak, and so I was trying to get back in, but I kept on flipping off, and we lost the smallest one, which would be easier for the smallest, or it would be easier for me to get back to shore.
Okay.
And then I had the pink one, and then the pink one got lost, and
So you're starting off in the kayak.
yeah.
You've got your pink oar.
Yeah, and then I lost
too.
it, and then I was just sitting in the kayak, just thinking, and then Bo and Grace paddled over to me, and he's like, Bo jucked me his oar, and then Mum said, "Go get help," and
So you're not getting anywhere in the kayak. So your best bet is just to swim for it.
oh no, so I was going well in the kayak for a while, but then I kept on flipping, and Bo told me before to take out both plugs, and then I flipped over and I lost the plugs, so it's like,
Right. Okay.
yeah, it was like a lot of thoughts, and then I looked back, I could still see like their faces, and then I could see the silhouette, and then I can just see like a dot, and then it's gone.
They're gone.
And I'm like,
You're on your own.
Should I go back now? Should I not? And then, and then I decided to go, all right, well, I can't see them anymore. Time to go.
Time to keep going to shore.
Yeah.
But you did have that moment of, do I go back to them
Yeah.
or do I keep going on?
Yeah.
All right. Do you think about, looking back on it, do you think about how you could have made the wrong decision there?
Yeah, so for the first little bit of, the trauma, it was more like thinking of the what ifs, like just like what if they died, what if, and then for some last few weeks of the bad trauma was like, I was going to go back. What if I went back?
So it haunted you?
Yeah, so that made me feel sick for a little bit, but
But you made the right decision.
yeah. And funny thing is, when we were driving back from Dunsborough and I was knackered, and I was going to go to a pool party. It sounds crazy, but it was my best mate's pool party, and she really wanted to see me, and I really wanted to see her, so it was good to see her.
You weren't tempted to get in the water, though?
Oh, no, I actually missed that part of the party, but on the drive back from Perth, nothing felt real. Like, I was trying to, like, locate different, like, locations that I've been before, like, to snap back into to reality, and, like, look at number plates, see how designed they are.
Everything just looks strange.
Yeah, it just felt like I was asleep, kind of. Yeah, it was that kind of feeling, but I wasn't.
I can imagine. I'd like to come back to that, Austin, but Josh, we could talk a bit about those sort of decisions that they're having to make there. I mean, do we see those in these moments of trauma that create the sort of situations that obviously the rescue team need to step into?
Yep.
How often are those decisions made poorly, or do people make the wrong decisions?
Yeah, I think very easily. I think it's incredible listening to Austin talk about the decisions that he made, and I think people panic and they make the wrong decisions, or they doubt themselves. It's clearly obvious he just got into a mindset of, I've got to get this done, and that's what he's focused on, and he did it. And it's a credit to his personality and willpower, because you can really easily panic, and in those situations, if you do panic and lose your you lose sight or you give up hope, that's when people make the wrong decisions, and you see that a fair bit sometimes. But the people that sort of back themselves and just go, well, you accept what's in front of you and you work through the problem, and you'll make the right decision. You just can never give up, which is exactly what you did.
No, I think both of you, clearly. I mean, the decisions you made and the determination that you showed, Austin, is absolutely incredible. But Joanne, Austin's talked about looking back and seeing you guys disappear, little dots in the distance. What did it feel like for you watching Austin set off towards the horizon?
It was much the same, but I knew, as I said earlier, when we set him off and he was rowing and he was gone, he did shout back at me, should I just come back? And I was like, no, mate, you need to keep going. Because, yeah, it was like, as you're doing that, I know I'm getting further and further away from you. So we're drifting out. And, you know, I'm not the strongest swimmer anyway. There was just no way we were going to get back in. So we had to let him go. But he disappeared out of view very quickly.
Right.
But part of me then thought, well, he's made it, because he must have kind of went round that corner and now he's hit the shallow water, so we're going to get rescued soon. It was as the day wore on that I was like, I don't think he's made it, and the worst has happened, so yeah.
Which is a horrible thing to be contemplating.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it was pretty, definitely as the sun went down was the worst.
Right.
And then you would have been contemplating, if he hadn't got back, not only would you then be wondering, is Austin not well, that still leaves you wondering about your fate. So you've got like it
was as I was trying to explain to actually somebody yesterday who asked me a question at work, and they was like, what were you thinking? And I remember as the sun was going down, because I knew the time, because as I was watching the sun you could kind of go where you were in the day, and I knew that they lock up the paddle boards to chain them all together. And that was, at this stage, I'm thinking, well, Austin hasn't made it, but they've chained these all together at 5 o'clock, and it's so visible if there's a vessel missing, that they're going to raise the alarm, they're going to look at the books, they're going to call us, they're going to try and find us. And as that wasn't happening, I was like, wow, okay, so how do I work this out? How am I going to tell anyone that I've sent my kid off and he hasn't made it? And then I've got these two. What if they're not found? But if they are found, just take them and make sure they're okay. Don't worry about me. You know, it was like, yeah.
A lot of tough decisions that you're facing up to there.
Yeah.
Yes. And part of it is that sense, and I had this as a parent too, of allowing your kids to take risks in any circumstances, you know, which they need to, and kids need to take risks to be better judge of danger, really, if nothing else. There's now that sense of, well, how am I going to be judged if this goes wrong? And that's whether they've just ridden their bike down to the shops, let alone set off to shore. I mean, there's a lot. So there's a lot of pressure that you're feeling as a parent in that,
yeah.
that moment.
And there was, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was but it was more the guilt and, you know. Sorry. Yeah, I've often wondered about mums who do lose a child before them. So it was more of how do you live when they haven't?
Of course. So Austin, your mum's going through a lot out at sea. How are you think? So when do you get out of the kayak? When do you get in the water and start swimming? You've seen them drift off. When do you decide you've got a better chance just in the water?
I was paddling along and I thought I was finally getting somewhere, but I really wasn't. And I kept on judging this thing because I couldn't look down and see the seaweed, because the seaweed changes anyway.
Right.
And so when I was trying to get there as best as I could, I didn't see a big wave, and then knocked me off, and like I hit my head and I got trapped under the kayak. And this is with my life jacket on. And it's only a small kayak, so it's not like a big boat, and you can like breathe under it. It was a small kayak with no air under it, and then a bunch of water went in my lungs, and it's like, oh no. And I felt sick, and then I finally had the strength to push me out, and that's when the adrenaline actually started. And then I popped myself back over the kayak, and I threw up, and I was like, oh, okay, now it's time to go. And I was sitting at the kayak for about another 10 minutes. I was just looking at myself in the reflection of the kayak. I was like, oh, wow. And then, I just went, and then...
You were steeling yourself. You knew what you had to do.
Yeah. And then, so after I left the kayak, it was just the determination to go save my family, and then I made more clever decisions, like taking off the...
You took off your life jacket.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Because to me, that's the thing that's keeping you afloat. That's keeping you safe. Why did you take it off?
Because I got really tired very easily. It was just, well, I've done this in swimming pools with no current, and life jackets are actually pretty hard to swim with.
Mm.
But with a current facing you, it's one of the hardest things to do. It's just like, yeah, it's horrible. And obviously I couldn't really swim under, and because I don't know, I could feel seaweed sometimes just like lashing my body, and then I realised I was actually in the middle of the rip.
Right, okay.
So I was going out further and further at the second, and
so because you're in the life jacket, the rip's just pushing you further out.
Yeah, much easier. Like, even if I didn't have the life jacket, I'd still be going out, but just much slower. And so I said, because you know how they say with adrenaline you can like lift up a car sometimes?
Yeah.
They had elastic on the thing, and I snapped that in half, and I tied it to the life jacket, and then I took off the life jacket, tied the life jacket to my foot, but it was still dragging me behind. And then finally I think I just shook my leg and it fell off, and I was like, all right. And then I stopped looking backwards. I looked forwards and realised I needed to get out of the rip. So I like went underwater, and I could you could see just a bunch of bubbles like coming your way. So I kind of get out of that, and then for the next 50 minutes try to get out of that, and then after that felt easy. It was just kind of like a relief of your body, but still there was big waves.
Okay, so you got out of the rip.
Yeah.
So it's like you've slowly left safety in stages. You've left your family behind, you've left the kayak behind, you've taken off the life jacket, you've tied it to your leg, then you've slowly let that go too. So you're on your own now.
Yeah.
But you feel like you're making progress.
Yeah, and then I tried to do breaststroke as much as I could, because you go underwater. Instead of freestyle, because obviously I don't have any goggles, I'm just doing it freely, and you when you looking underwater and then you go up, a wave comes, splashes your face, and then you cough, and if it gets too bad, you might cough, and then you might sink.
But breaststroke's easier, isn't it?
So I go underwater, and I look up, and then there's a wave coming, and I try to get out of that and breathe, go under again, and then sometimes I'll go on my back and like just do spiral backstroke, take a little break, and then keep on going. And then kind of like when it got more calmer, freestyle all the way.
Okay. All right, so you were breaking it up to different strokes. I'm amazed how clearly you're thinking here. You're thinking about the rip, you're thinking about the waves, you're thinking about how to keep yourself going, which strokes are going to get you there. I mean, what's happening physically? How are you feeling in terms of your body? How knackered are you? Or is the adrenaline's just still pumping at this point?
Yeah, it was the adrenaline that kept me going.
And what about mentally? I mean, it's obviously... How far do they think you swam in the end? You're in the water for 4 hours.
So I said around about 3.5 to 4 kilometres.
Okay.
And I judged it because at my dad's place, there's a train line, and to my right, when I go up on kind of like the little viewing spot, on the right there's a signal light about 50 metres away.
Mm-hmm.
And then down that way, 4 kilometres that way, there's another signal light, and I look there if it's green or red to see if a train's coming.
Okay.
So
That helps you measure distance.
yeah, so I could see that was the exact distance. So
Okay.
yeah, so but who knows? It could have been a kilometre, but I'm pretty sure it was around about that distance. But
okay. So you're measuring distance for yourself. Are you trying to break your journey down into smaller? Do you set yourself little goals, little sort of steps? You know, I just need to get to this point, and then I'll be all right. Or?
No, I changed one bit. I kind of like, instead of going straight for the hotel, I went. It's kind of like head distance, but really it's 2 kilometres. And I went that way, and then I ran. When I got to the beach, I ran that distance.
Okay, so you could see the hotel, but you went off to the side because it looked closer. All right, but when you're in the water, what's keeping you going? What are you thinking about? That's.
I don't think I'm actually thinking about anything. I'm just thinking about get back to shore.
Just got to get back to shore.
You know, it's mainly for my family, but obviously, like I want to see another morning. Like I want to, and I, you know, it was just kind of like, sounds a bit selfish, but it was just like, come on, do it for yourself, to help your family. So
I did wonder about that. I mean, if it had just been you, if your family hadn't been out at sea and you didn't have to get back to shore for your family's sake, do you think you would have had the same strength to keep going?
I never actually thought about that. It depends with the adrenaline, but
You had a girlfriend to get back to at that
I had a
time
girlfriend to
too,
get back to
right?
that
So you had to think about
yeah.
that. So there might have been a bit of determination there.
What do you think, Austin?
I reckon I wouldn't have as much strength to do it. But yeah, obviously the determination to see my mum, my brother, and my sister okay.
And to see your girlfriend again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was there a moment where you thought, I mean, we've all had these experiences, I imagine, doing sort of feats of endurance, not as anywhere near as impressive as yours, but where your body just goes, I just want to stop, I just want to give in. Did you have a moment like that?
Definitely. I had a lot of those moments with the kayak, so I could still cling on to it. And I think I had one of those moments without the kayak and the life jacket.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's...
What gets you past those moments?
I don't know. I think it's just the thought of seeing my family again, or even just seeing another, seeing my dog, seeing my friends at school, seeing, you know,
just getting back to life.
Yeah.
Stopping wasn't an option. I get the impression you were like, no, I'm just going to keep going.
Well, Josh, from your perspective, I mean, knowing what you did about that day, what sort of conditions was Austin facing there? I mean, how?
I was horrible. We were night shift, and we got the call at like we'd just taken over from the day crew, and they were like, "Oh, there's some people lost off Dunsborough." You know, it's dark. Like this doesn't. You know, you're processing it as the information is coming through, and then we all get ready and get our stuff sorted, and then we're flying out there, and the pilots say, you could see there's like you see the white caps in the direction of the wind pushing the ocean, and you're like, oh, it's pretty windy and choppy down there. And then the pilot, as we all talk and comment while we're flying, and when it was we set up for a start doing a search pattern, you'd feel the aircraft move. You go one way, you're going with the wind, and then you turn around and you'll feel the aircraft moving. So it was really windy down there, and the current just looked
fierce.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Okay. Joanne, you're still out in the middle of that. How are you keeping the younger children calm? You mentioned Moana and Free Willy. But,
yes, we done a bit of that. We just kept talking about, I still had, up until it got dark, we still had it up talking about getting home, getting what we were going to do, and we got to shore. Saying, I had said, well, we might as well just stay tonight and go home in the morning. There was times when we spoke about dinner and what we were going to eat, and then because Grace was very hungry,
of course,
and the waves were getting extremely large at different points, and they'd come like in 4 or 5 big ones. So I would keep because the kids were exhausted, so they'd put their head down, they'd close their eyes for a minute, but the water would splash over you and waking you up. And but as the waves would come, when I was watching them, I'd say, "Okay, big wave," and they'd get ready to, keep hold of the paddleboard. And the point where Grace shouted at me and goes, "Can you please stop calling big wave and just call it big W?" So we were talking about big W for a while, and yeah, we just until it got dark, and when it did get dark, you could see certain lights, obviously in the distance of homes and whatever else. And I remember I was talking about in Ireland. I used to work in a place called Galway Bay, and every child along those shores would have a telescope where they'd watch the ocean at night time and see what they'd find out there. And I'm praying that one kid in any of these is looking out and can see us. And then I'm looking at the white caps and the waves and going, no one's going to see us. But, if there was at all a possibility that there would. And then the moon, there was a tiny bit of moonlight and there was a couple of stars, so we were watching them. And it was just doing that. And then eventually I was looking at one of the stars and talking to my mum back home, telling her to light the holy candle for us. And yeah, we just kept talking and telling stories. Bo got very, very weak quite quickly when the sun went down. And he had mentioned that he'd lost the feeling in his legs. And then he would drift off to sleep and then wake in a panic and shout for me. And it'd be like, I'm right here, it's okay, and fall back asleep. And yeah, it was just in and out of that sort of way. Grace would get a bunch of energy and go, I can see the shore, come on, let's paddle. So, we just kept going with it, riding the waves.
How long were you in the water in total?
We were in there, I'm going to say 10 hours. We were definitely lost for 8 of them.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Day went by really quickly though.
It did?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was like, I thought it was 2 o'clock when I got back to shore, but it was 5 o'clock.
Wow.
Well, 6 o'clock actually, so it was a pretty fast day, and for Bo, it was also a pretty fast day for him.
Okay.
But I think it was just the adrenaline that everyone had, it just passed through.
I can imagine. So when you were told that you'd been swimming for 4 hours, did it seem like 4 hours?
No.
Just
I knew it was long distance, but I didn't think it was 4 hours. And when I checked the phone, I was like, thought it was 2 o'clock, because the sun's still up there, but it's summertime in Dunsborough, so you don't know. It's hard to tell what time it is, depending on the sun. But yeah.
Well, let's go back to reaching the shore then. You can see land. How does it feel to actually touch down on the shore, having been in the water for 4 hours?
Well, especially down in near Bustleton, the shore goes out for a while until it finally, until you finally have your head on the water. So I was swimming with sand like that close to my body. So and then I hit the sand on my hand. I was like, and I stood up and it was like, I still get the feeling sometimes, but like not as much. I think I got it even this morning with my legs. It's just like, it felt like jelly.
Right.
Yeah.
You're trying to stand up, pull yourself out of the water.
Yeah.
Your legs are just
and then the sand was hot, but I was cold. So it was just the best feeling ever, lying in the sand. And then...
So you pull yourself out of the water and just collapse on the sand?
Yeah, I fell on the sand. And then I realised I was all sandy, so I was like, oh man. And then when I went for the run...
So can you see the hotel from where you are?
Yeah, I could see the hotel.
Okay.
It's like a big orange building that stands out.
Yeah.
So I could still see it the whole time.
All right, but you know you've got a fair run to get there.
Yeah, and they had this little drain passage, and I dove into there, and like I got all the sand off me, and then I went back on the shore, and then I fell off. When I hit the sand, I fell again. So I had sand on me again. I was like, oh.
It's just your legs giving up.
Yeah. And so I finally reached the shore, not the shore, the things, but I ran past it, and I ran like another 50 metres, and I turned around. I was like, oh, right, it's right there, because...
So you ran past the hotel?
I actually ran past the actual bag because it was half submerged in the sand.
Bag. All right, where the phone is.
And I had to pull the bag out of the sand and open it up and find Mum's phone. And I thought she left it in the what do you call it? But then I remember she was taking photos that day. But I didn't remember that when I had the phone in my hand and I was talking to the police about what the kayak looked like and all of that.
Right. So you found the bag. You can't find the phone straight away. All right. So lucky that he knows your PIN to use your phone, presumably.
Yeah, he seems to know a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's because you had that PIN for like what 10 years. Fair enough.
So you knew what to do. Call 000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think I even opened up the phone. I think I just saw the button and pressed it, just 000. So I didn't really use the phone that much that night. I used Instagram to add my girlfriend on Instagram and call her, and just call Dad. And I was going to call my godmother Kirsten and Janike and.
So you just wanted to talk to people once you got back? Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to have to tell anyone.
Yeah.
But what's amazing listening to the call that you made to the emergency services is how calm you sound. I mean, did you feel calm at that moment?
Yeah. When I said in one of my interviews, so the first one before I even heard the call, I remember I was calm. Yeah. But I do remember the windy beach, so she couldn't really hear much. Because obviously it's like a 16-minute phone call, so I haven't even heard the full thing. I've only heard the one that
just the clips of it.
Media release. So, but there was a lady on the beach that I had to call over. She was like French, I think, and she took the phone away. She started walking away with the phone, so I didn't even know what she was talking about.
Okay.
I was like, oh, man, like, and then when Dad and Mum heard the thing, they said to me that she said that this boy looks shaken.
Okay. All right. So she was making sure they took you seriously.
Yeah.
Josh, let's come to you. This is where you enter the story properly. Yeah. How important was that information that Austin gave on the call?
It was vital. It gave us a starting point to start our search. And it's funny because we've reflected on this because we always look for how could we do this better and that sort of thing. And got the initial information, and you're like, that doesn't make sense. 13-year-old swimming 4Ks. You're processing this, and you're like, nah. And we often get calls where it might be someone lost or an EPIRB, and we throw everything at it, and invariably sometimes, often it's a non-event, or the person's found a couple 100 metres, or a boat picks them up and they're like, oh yeah, great, we've got them. So you're sort of thinking, Bay of Dunsborough, it's a popular area, the police or someone, like, you're processing it and you're almost a bit surreal.
So what time was this when Austin's call came through?
Oh, I think it was either 5:45 or 6 or 15:15, because I remember thinking, we don't have a lot of light. It takes about 15 minutes to get changed, get in the aircraft, get for the pilot to get his plan in, and then start heading there. Dunsborough's about a 16-minute flight. So we thought, okay, well, we're going to lose 30 minutes sort of getting to location. We all knew that we had about 30 minutes of 30, maybe 45 minutes of really good search. And then after that, things were going to become really, really challenging.
Imagine.
So that information was great, because we found the hotel and then we actually started the search pattern. But we initially thought, and what often can happen, especially in a bay and it was windy and you could see the wind was pushing the ocean one direction, the first track, and it might have been the track that you saw us, we've gone down the coast because we thought, well, typically you might find you pushed out to sea and then you get pushed down the coast. And so we actually went down to the other side of the bay and had a look there, because we thought, well, they've probably been washed up on the rocks and they're probably still trying to make their way back, quite a few kilometres. Okay. So we went south first, because everything's happening, unfolding as an emergency, you're sort of processing real-time information and then coming up with a search plan at the same time. So you're kind of using a bit of experience, a bit of instinct.
So you imagine they may have just been washed up a bit further down.
Well, we thought maybe they've been washed out and then they've been washed, because the current looked to be pushing that way as well. So we thought, they've probably been washed out, and then, once you get to a certain part, further south, the coast is closer. So we thought, well, let's check that first. Because if they're down on the coast, that's really easy to find and see. And we could see paddle boards actually in different areas along the coast and whatnot. Okay. And then we couldn't find them. And then we were getting more information from the police, and volunteer marine rescue were out searching for them. And that's when we sort of came back and started, a bit of a sort of a search pattern, just going sort of up and down the coast. And slowly working our way out. And I think because we didn't have all the story, we didn't know he'd been swimming for 4 hours and stuff like that. And it makes sense. You're like, well,
you wouldn't assume a 13-year-old boy would swim that far.
No, well, we didn't.
In those conditions.
No, we certainly didn't. But you don't know all of this information initially. So we're like, well, we'll start in and we'll just slowly work our way out until we find someone.
How far out were they?
I think from memory, I want to say it's about 10 mile, because everything in aviation is mile and feet.
It's about 16K.
Yeah, or maybe, honestly, 14's coming to mind. Okay. But 14, 15, it was a long way out.
Wow.
It was, it was pretty scary.
Obviously this story has a happy ending, but how unusual is a happy ending in this kind of crisis?
Yeah, not. So we were quite confident going out in the daytime. It's like, okay, cool, daytime, and we didn't think you were that far out. So we're like, well, we should be able to find them. And doing wet rescues is kind of a bit of a, you love doing them, because if you get to the person and you winch them out of the water, it's good. It's what we love doing it. So, I'm in my wetsuit and I'm really keen. I'm like, cool, we're going to save some kids and a mum, and this is going to be awesome. So you're flying around, you're looking for them, and then time drags on, and then VMR, a volunteer marine rescue, had found your kayak. And it was it was a far way out, and there was obviously no one in it. We're like, oh. Okay. But so then everything's lining up. You're like, okay, they found a kayak, and there's no one in it, and it's far out, and it's getting darker. Mm. And so then we're trying to then adapt our search pattern to go, well, if the kayak's there, they're further out from there, so let's start doing a search pattern. And you sort of go from a sense of excitement to a bit of a sense of, this is not going to end well.
Dread.
Yeah, absolutely. And a fear of not being able to find them. So, it's not as easy as you think to spot someone. So when it got to dusk, and that was the hardest light to work with, because we used night vision goggles in the aircraft, but there's this sort of time between the sun going down and it getting dark, where the light's too light to use night vision goggles, but it's too dark to really see anything. So we've gone from this sort of excitement of we're going to save the day to this is not good at all.
Yeah.
Probably just almost like sorrow or despondent. You start thinking about the other jobs that you've done and where this is going to end. And then it gets dark enough that we say, right, well, let's actually once it got actually dark, like black, then we were like, okay, we actually can see with the night vision goggles to a point where searching, we still might be able to find something. So you got the pilot in the front right seat, Myke. You've got John, the crewman, in the back operating the FLIR on a screen, and then you've got Adam sitting in a seat. He's looking down the side, and then I'm on a wander lead, which allows me to move up around the cabin and everything like that. So we're sort of, left and right with night vision goggles looking at the ocean, and we're 1,000 feet up. Well, that's basically almost 2 football. Football field's about 550 foot, right? So you're 2 football fields high in the sky.
Right.
And you're looking down, and we use white phosphorus night vision goggles, so it's like a black and white television. So your white caps are white, and your water's dark, and your cray pups look white, and seaweed looks white, and you've got all these things that look like white heads bobbing in the water.
Right.
White caps look like heads bob, because now what we're looking for is just a head bobbing in the water, right? Or some sort of something that looks not normal to a landscape that is covered in white caps and birds and seaweed, and like once it goes dark, you don't have a colour reference.
Right. So it's a fierce challenge.
Yeah.
You're talking about feeling like you're losing hope. How did it feel to finally spot them?
Oh, it was so. All the credit goes to John on the FLIR. So we were getting close to bingo. So at a certain point, we were going to have to go and refuel.
Okay.
And come back and recommit the search.
It must be so hard to step away when you need to.
It is, but and that's why we set just really limits right at the start of every mission. There's all of these profiles that we won't deviate from, because you could literally sit there and go, oh, we can push it for another minute, another minute.
Yeah.
So we were getting very close to needing to turn around and refuel, and we turned around to head. I think we're heading north, and we were all saying like, this is. And you get tired, right? Because you're looking at the same thing, and you almost have not hallucinations, but you see something and like, did I see that, or did I lose concentration? Because you're staring at the ocean for by now it'd been almost an hour. So you're staring at this stuff, and John says, "Oh, 3 people spotted on stand-up paddleboard, or laying on a paddleboard, wherever it was, forward and left, whatever." And I was like, is he taking the... Yeah. And then when you look at the screen, you're like, oh, wow. And because the FLIR can look at a number plate from 20 kilometres away, so it's crisp and beautiful. Yeah. And we could see you guys on the paddleboard and on the surfboards, and like, wow, this is... And then there's just... everything goes from despondent and this is just rubbish to we found them.
Amazing.
And so you become... you're just super elated that we've actually found these people. I had given up hope of finding them. I think we all had given up hope of finding them overnight.
Okay. Joanne, what do you remember about that moment when rescue finally gets there?
When we could see them, as I said, towards the shore. Well, I couldn't see much. I'd lost my glasses, so But I knew there was a light there, and I'd said to Bo, "Is that a helicopter? I think they could be searching for us." And there were a few times they went by us, and I was like, they're not going to see us with the white caps, and they explained how that works, but I was like, you missed us, come back this way. But I didn't actually shout that at the kids. I did one or twice kind of go, look, just wave, because they might just see us, I don't know, and I kept thinking they're going to go off and call off the search, because it was very choppy out there, very windy. And
so you're giving up hope at this point?
Yeah, but hoping for the best.
Yeah.
When the light came on us, and it stayed on us, and it was the best thing in the world, but it also made us, all 3 of us, kind of look up, and as we did, a wave came, and then the wave, it said, because normally you'd have the little 2, mainly the little 2 would stay on their paddleboard, and I'd be in the ocean by a wave, but this time all of us got flipped. But the way it went was I got flipped kind of into the middle between the 2 paddleboards, and then the rope that I tied together had wrapped around me, but the wave took the kids away from me. And I genuinely believe that's when the most damage was done, because they were then gone and I couldn't get to them. And they didn't have, they had the life jackets on, thank God. But I'm thinking in my head going, I can't hear Bo. I can't. He's been telling me that his legs are numb. Because way out there, before we ever seen a chopper, I'm thinking the nicest thing that I can do for these kids right now is try and get them to fall asleep. And like hypothermia, shut them down and they just go to sleep. So, and I was trying to keep myself awake to make sure I could do that. So seeing the light of that, how fantastic it was, but that wave that separated us, and then I could hear Grace screaming and I couldn't hear Bo. And I'm looking, obviously, up at Josh going, send the thing down, because I'm just thinking they're going to send this thing down. And I'm going, just go and get the kids, they're over there.
Yeah.
And so I was waving like this and screaming. And then I'm in my own head, I'm going, what am I screaming? It's a helicopter, he's not going to hear it. That's it. And at this stage, I'm going, why are they just staying there?
Yeah.
Like, because I couldn't see a boat, I couldn't see lights, I couldn't hear anything, only the helicopter and my daughter screaming.
Yeah.
And I'm in the water and I can't get out of it. And I'm thinking, well, there's a shark coming any second now. I'm gone. But I'm thinking, is the shark going to get them? And I'm just like, yeah, please go and get them. And I could see the light was on me. And I was wondering, is it still, can they still see the kids in that light, or where are they? So yeah, it was.
So the worst moment of crisis
a relief,
is the very
that,
end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that elated feeling of being found, but it was also the potential of what could happen in those few minutes before actually being rescued.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it was pretty horrible and beautiful at the same time.
Once you've seen them, Josh, how simple is the rescue?
It was not simple at all. So we can't, we obviously couldn't hoist at night over water.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there in my wetsuit going, I know what I want to do, but we can't do it. So we were all pretty excited, and then the boats were nowhere near you. You were like here, and all the boats were well away. So it became highly complex. And then we thought that, so we saw you guys separate. We didn't really see the wave, we just saw you guys separate. And we were like, no, stay together. What are you guys doing? Like, well, you couldn't hear us either, but we're still talking to you. And then we thought that maybe you guys had thought we were about to come down and winch you out. So that's why you've sort of separated. And we're like, oh, no. And then the wave makes more sense. And then we could see more, everyone was, all the white caps, and there was more waves sort of smashing you guys around. And then it became evident that you guys had separated. And so the FLIR can slave on a target. So the FLIR was slaved to you. And so that will track you. No matter where the aircraft goes, it'll automatically turn. So we weren't hovering over the top of you, we were actually orbiting, right? So you think for the pilot, he's got to orbit at 1,000 feet in dark with night vision goggles. So he's trying to go around like this. And as obviously he goes around, the FLIR will follow you. But then because the kids had become separated, myself and Myke were using night vision goggles, and I had a searchlight out the side of the aircraft. So we're keeping reference of these two little, it was like little pinheads, little white pinheads that once your eyes got it, you would separate, you would like, I can see the heads moving around, they're a little bit different to white caps. So we were trying to keep reference of the two heads moving around in the water while the aircraft is circling. But as you come around at different points in time, it'd be like Myke would say, okay, I've got them out at their 1 o'clock, and I wouldn't be able to find them. And then as the aircraft is turning, he'd be like, right, they're coming around to you, and I'd be like, okay, I've got them at 3 o'clock, and I would follow them, as the aircraft is turning around, and then they'd go to a point behind the tail where we wouldn't be able to find them, or Myke would be trying to keep them between mine and his reference. And poor John was trying to coordinate with the vessels on scene our location. But because it's dark and we're fairly high up, it's not as simple as saying just come to the light, because the light's moving in the sky. So he's trying to give them coordinates and lat long and track you. So it went from like a moment of excitement to, oh, this is going to be a good ending, to I'm not sure how long it took for the boats to get to you. I reckon it was about 12, 15 minutes, and it felt like an hour. And I actually thought, because at one stage we lost reference of the two kids, but then we found them again, because we could see you guys just stretching like this, and it became harder and harder to be able to keep reference of the two at the same time. And I thought, don't tell me that we have found them and literally we're going to watch them separate and maybe lose two of them because once we've lost sight of those two kids, because they lost sight of the paddleboard as well, because the paddleboard is what stood out on the fleur the biggest. So we all legitimately thought we're literally going to watch two people perish after finding them, and we're powerless to do it. So it was very tense.
Dramatic.
Yeah.
It's almost like the climax of a film, isn't it? There's always that one last dangerous complication that makes things almost impossible. It's amazing to think that you lived through that.
It is.
Austin, how did it feel to your family have been rescued? How did it feel to hear that?
Well, obviously the day after I got back to the reception and cops came in and ambulance came in, from 12 o'clock to that time, it felt like 2 hours. But then from the time that, I don't have to do anything anymore. Like, I can sit and relax.
You've made the call. You've done everything you can.
And I was lying in that hospital bed. I had a shower. I had everything. Felt like 24 hours. Like, it was just the longest time ever. And that was only 2 hours, but it felt like days and days. And then the police officer with me, Shannon, was she kept from getting calls, and it was like, oh no. And each call's like, they found, but they're not alive, or they found, but they're okay, but one of them's missing an arm. It's just like...
You're thinking the worst.
It's just thoughts get to your head, and then you want to sleep, but you can't sleep, and then you finally call Dad, and then 5 minutes, it felt like 2 hours, but 5 minutes later I call him back and saying that they've been found alive, which is like great.
Amazing. And Joanne, how did you feel being rescued and hearing that Austin is safe and well?
Well, I when the boat did get to us, but when the boat came to me, because I was giving out to the guys at the side of the boat trying to get me out of water, because I was like, go and get the kids, don't worry about me. And they were like, get on the boat. And I was like, get the kids. And they were like, on boat now. And I was like, okay. So I get on the boat, and then they've filled in the blanks for me, because these are the bits I remember but don't. They're very hazy. Is I got on the boat and I kept saying, there's kids in the water, and I'm not sure how they knew there was 3 people at sea. They'd found me, but the actual guys on the back of the boat didn't know that there was 2 other kids. Yep. So they're looking at me going, what are you talking about? And I was like, kill the engine. I can hear her scream. So everything kind of dulled down for a second, and then they spotted them. At this stage, I still hadn't heard Bo, and I'm screaming for these kids. So, and then I heard Bo's voice. So that was great. So then the boat goes to them and gets them in. Now, my memory of it, because the boat was so unsteady, because the waves were huge, the wind was going, the helicopter lights I think were still there, but that all got very hazy. Dave told me that there was no way I would go, because they kept saying, you need to go down into the boat, and I was may have used some choice language, but I was not going down there until my kids were with me. And then I'm also then, once I hear Bo, I'm trying to go, okay, well, Austin, did you get Austin? Has anyone got Austin? Now, they've told me that the driver had shouted back that they had Austin, but I hadn't heard that. So when I have the 2 kids with me, and then I can make it down into the bottom of the boat, and I'm thinking it's a boat, so we're like 5 minutes from shore. It's like 40 minutes to get us back into shore, because I didn't realise how choppy, like how hard it was for the boat, but also how far we were out. And I'm thinking, hurry up, I need to get to the shore. Like, I need to find out if he's been got, because nobody seems to understand what I'm saying. And I'm Irish, and when I'm, so I'm like going. And then, I'm quite ill then, and I go into shock a bit on the boat. And the guys were just amazing. Grace is back to talking as normal. She's perfect. Bo's still very weak. And when we get to shore, it's Murray, who is an ambulance driver. He came down the ramp and he said, I have Austin. So that was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Austin, you've been called a hero for your amazing efforts to save your family. How does that sit with you?
So, first people who called me heroes were because I wasn't actually told until they actually got to the hospital, and then people came.
You weren't
in.
told that your family were okay until they got to the hospital.
And that's when I was called one, but I just didn't really think of it like that. And then when the news came and, just big, and I didn't expect it to be so big. And so that's just more of a sense that, like, what I just did. But then, obviously, the news didn't really give enough credit to Bo and Grace. And then, Mum did get a lot of credit, but she also got a bit of hate too. People don't really think straight and say,
Being a bit judgy.
Yeah, very judgy.
That must have all made it seem a little more. You talked about coming back and nothing seemed real. It must have seemed even weirder, even more surreal that the news are there and it's become this big story, something that's bigger than you.
Well, I didn't really know what was going on in the background at the time, so it was Monday night, and so my legs are so sore, and I just had a whole day of school because I wanted to see my friends.
You went to school?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I actually stayed at school that day. It was actually pretty tough, but when
you went to school the day after swimming 4 hours.
It was the Monday back, so.
On your crutches.
Yeah, I was in the wheelchair. I was in a wheelchair from up the stadium.
Were you? Okay.
And then the news came Tuesday morning. It was like, how's that? Like, how can you do that so fast?
Joanne, Austin's been very careful there to give credit to his siblings, to Bo and to Grace and to you, that he has had this attention, that he has been called a hero. How does that make you feel, I guess, about your decision to send him back, but also about your eldest child?
Well, obviously, I'm extremely proud of him. He's still a teenager and he can get cheeky, but I'm still very, very proud of him. He's done a wonderful thing. The attention he has received, and we didn't expect it to go as far as it has, and so many people have writ to us and sent well wishes and stuff, and we're in the process of trying to get around now that things are settled down to thanking everybody properly, and he has done amazingly. The decision itself, I think any other decision, like Josh said earlier, we wouldn't be doing this podcast today, that's for sure. And I think we are extremely lucky, one, that he is determined, and that he did follow through with it. And at the end of the day, regardless of any of the hate or feedback, the decision was the right one. And I'm not taking credit for that. It was a terrible decision to make, but it worked out in our favour, along with all the first responders. That absolutely worked out in our favour. So yeah.
Has it changed the way that you see Austin?
Oh God, no.
No.
He's still the same. I think maybe I have a funny feeling that because we've had to have the kids try and get some trauma counselling and everything else. I think that at the end of it, in a few years, when Austin does look back at it, that he looks at it for what it is, and not that he's traumatised by it. That it's changed his course of life as well, and all of us.
So, Austin, having done this incredible, impossible thing, do you have a sense now that other incredible things might be possible?
Oh yeah, well, the day after, I think it was the morning after, and Mum said, "Well, kids, if we could do that, we can conquer the world." So,
You feel like that?
yeah, so it's just like more of a sense of life. So, I see time differently. So it was like, oh yeah, so period 3 is going to end in 5 minutes. And then it's like, oh wait, how is it already there? Okay, it was always meant to happen. Then sometimes I just see things out the window a bit differently.
You're looking at the world more in a different way.
Yeah.
You've got that memory, you can cherish that now. That I love endurance sport and ultra events and whatnot, and I think now that you've been through something that has just been so challenging and you succeeded, whenever times get tough, you've now got like a superpower to look back and go, well, I've got through that, so I can get through anything else, and you can harness that. That's really powerful.
Josh, from your perspective, it's an extraordinary story. But what could other people learn from this story?
I guess like ocean safety, I think what they can learn is that things can happen. I mean, the Bay of Dunsborough, who would think you'd get washed out in that bay? It's super secluded and it's flat and it's lovely, right? I think things can go out of control really quickly. Can you predict it or plan for it? Maybe not. So, hopefully people can just, I guess, always see the ocean as, the ocean's great, but it can turn on you really quickly. We see it in every year in Scarborough and Triggs with rips that pull people out and that sort of thing. So I guess if people can always have a sense of awareness when they are having fun, that's not a bad thing. I think the fact that they were in life jackets as well, and you kept them on, like when you guys got separated, if they didn't have life jackets on, it would have been probably game over. So yeah, having life jackets on when they are having fun and that sort of thing. Just an abundance of caution, really. But also I think people can learn from this. I'm really of the Stoic philosophy. Like, there was a hugely challenging situation, and because of mindset and determination, they got through it. So I think if anyone takes anything from this story, it's just that, you can always achieve more than you think you can, and you just got to unlock that capability. And Austin and Joanne and the family have demonstrated that. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, is even when things get tough, you most likely can get through it if you let yourself get through it.
Joanne, what's one thing you would like people to take away from this story?
Be a bit more prepared, I suppose. I know I've gotten asked, did I have any snacks out there?
Boy, who takes snacks?
I wasn't actually going out for a picnic. No. Yeah, so it was literally, we were playing by the very shallow water, and things turned nasty very quickly. So it definitely gives a whole new appreciation for, as beautiful as the Australian coast is, also how dangerous it can be. Taken away from the story, I think, is, again, yeah, we see the world a different way now. It's still hard, but there has been days where I've said maybe being on the paddleboard wasn't as hard as this, especially with all this attention. But it is cherish those moments, cherish the kids.
What about you, Austin? Is there one thing that you would hope people might take from this as a lesson, something that could change their lives?
I feel like, obviously, swimming lessons are very big. And I know a lot of people who don't get swimming lessons until they're 8 years old. I've had swimming lessons since I've been 3. So just try to get into swimming lessons as fast as you can, because anything can happen. And then you might not be the best at swimming, but at least you know the basics. And then when you get into the high levels, you get to learn how to, take off a life jacket, in the water, and how to take off clothes and all of that.
Good practical advice. Yeah. Austin, Joanne, thank you for sharing your story with us. And Josh, thank you for being here and for being there.
Well, thank you. No, you're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in. If you liked this episode, let us know and share it with a friend. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next episode of RAC's Horizons podcast.